Hi there everyone, welcome back to On the Flip Side. My name is Adam Shawwalker, your host, and today we're going to be checking out this new Superorganism album, Worldwide Pop. This is the sophomore album from Superorganism, following up the band's 2018 self-titled full-length debut. An album that I think has some decent offerings on it. I think that there are some great breakout hits on that project. Most of that debut has a lot of fairly adventurous blends track to track that usually end up paying off pretty nicely. I can't say I was the most impressed with that debut though, as occasionally things take a turn into some fairly predictable sonic landscapes, though there is at least a pretty consistent and decent psych rock blend throughout most of that album. It can act like a bit of a double-edged sword though, like I said, becoming a bit predictable in the sense that they're certainly pulling influence from a lot of modern psych rock. I do also kind of like the Shodan-like vocal samples that pop up on that project too, just as a side note. Good touch. Anyway, while that first album is a pretty decent collection of tracks, especially for a debut, I've been wondering where this band is gonna go from here. I haven't really had too many strong expectations past the singles, which have begun to develop a bit more of a distinctive sound, and no surprise that development does not seem to be a collection of isolated incidents. This new album, while I don't think I'm blown away by it, it is a pretty decent step in the right direction, leaning further into an electropop style and further incorporating elements of electronic genres with some very clear house influences fused with these almost bubblegum psych beats. The track On and On comes to mind. There's some very moody instrumentals and some very laid-back vocal work that I do like. I am also fairly excited about the return of those Shodan-like vocal parts that were on a lot of the first album. One thing I have been appreciating a bit more about this album are a lot more of the tracks are a bit more distinctive and generally try to attempt to be more adventurous than pretty much any of the group's older material. Similarly though to their first release, the consistency and quality can be a bit rocky as a result, but I do at least appreciate the experimentation being a little bit more bold, so a lot of those problems, they don't end up being really negligible, but it does help. I do think that they've mostly made a middle-heavy track listing, maybe a little bit bottom-heavy as well. Black Hole Baby is a pretty good way to kick off this album, but it seems like a very quick burn that just kind of tries to be catchy but stumbles a bit by just being a little bit too much all at once. I do think the title track, Worldwide Pop, has a similar issue too. And these aren't bad tracks, mind you, but to me the quality of the album is a bit more of an upward trajectory from this point with a few exceptions. I do think On and On, with its house influences, is one of the better tracks here. I'm not the biggest on Teenager. I think the shared chorus is a bit grating. I do like the beat quite a bit, but this one just kind of clashes in some odd ways, mainly in the change-ups between the verses and the bridges and the chorus. It's all just very jumpy and infectiously poppy in a very sweet, almost overbearing manner. I do really like It's Raining. This to me is one of the best tracks here in the sense that it feels very fleshed out but doesn't really feel like they tried to make it as dense as possible. I do actually love the soaring breakbeat grind on Flying that reminds me a lot of Gorilla Toss. While it may not be that psych heavy, it really is kind of just nailing that modern electro-pop sound. Each section lands really nicely. It's a good track. Solar System is a cool track that has some sample work I'm a big fan of. I do think it tends to drag at some points though, but it is still a pretty good track. It is probably the most obvious middle track, as it is basically just bridging side A to side B, so it does a good job keeping the flow, but it is maybe a touch weaker than some of the other songs here. I think Into the Sun is probably my favorite track here though. It feels like a very nostalgic blending of maybe like mid-2000s pop and a refresh of this newer sound that they're trying to go for. I'm also a big fan of the whole idea with Put Down Your Phone, just kind of telling you to disengage for a while. Things will be okay if you don't look at your phone, which I am in total agreement with. It's not the strongest song, but I do like the lyrics enough that it holds up pretty well on its own. I like the intro for crushed.zip a lot. It makes me think it's going to be a bit more of a ballad track, and it does kind of half deliver on that, but it's a little bit more bright and sugary than I was hoping for. And the quality from this point on does start to dip a bit more. The track Oh Come On is a fine song, but it feels like the focus is starting to become noticeably lost lost here with a kind of weak beat and a weird, almost forced mention of Chipotle in the lyrics for some reason. Don't Let the Colony Collapse and Everything Falls Apart kind of send out the album on a fairly okay note, but I do wish they had maybe put some more thoughtful material on this tail end. I would really love to see some more moody songs from these guys, and I was kind of hoping that this would be where songs like that would be. It is kind of just a bog standard pop track ending though. So comparatively, I do think this is a better offering to the Superorganism debut. There's a lot more going on this album in the songwriting department on certain songs, but there's still some very clear leaps and bounds that are going to need to be made to really nail it and land it. I do think that these guys are a promising act, but the way that these songs sit with me are kind of spotty. A lot of this material feels like it's really trying to not land in the filler category, but unfortunately is still falling right into it. And like I said, the promise is still there, but there's gotta be a further, more comprehensive level of refinement to this sound. And man, there's gotta be just a general focus. Like, this album is about 40 minutes, not a crazy long length, but most of this material could probably have been condensed to maybe a half hour, maybe 25 minutes, and it would have been pretty damn solid. But as it sits, I'm thinking Worldwide Pop is a pretty okay 5. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what you thought of the album in the comments below, and drop a like, and remember to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this one. Check out my Instagram, my Reverb, and my Depop. Links to those are all in the description below. Thank you all so much again, and we'll see you on the flip side.